Hey there, guys. This is going to be the first episode of a series, maybe, of I'm going to call Zombie Chatter. Basically, I just wanted to have something to do while I played, share some opinions and experiences, just basically talk about Call of Duty Zombies. I've played this game since 2009, 2010. Whenever Black Ops 1 was hot and new. I actually started on World at War, the original map, Noctur and Toten, way back in the day, but it was not new anymore by the time I had gotten to it. But yeah. So in this video, I just wanted to basically share my opinion on the perks. And I just wanted to rate them best to worst and just kind of give my overall view on how I felt about them and how they affect the gameplay and the maps, and yeah. So I wanted to start with Quick Revive because obviously that is a large part of the Call of Duty franchise as far as zombies goes, and one of the first perks we ever received. It was introduced back on Verrückt in World at War, which was the first DLC map for that game. And back then it only had one function, and that was to help revive your teammates. So on solo, if you were to play any of those maps by yourself, whether that be Verrückt, Shinonuma, or Der Riese, it didn't really have any use for you, so you really only had 3 perks that you could get anything out of, and that was kind of lame. But Black Ops 1, they went ahead and made it to where it had a solo use. It would revive you if you went down, and you could buy that up to 3 times. I'm over here being a dummy. I struggle to talk and play at the same time, but it's I'll get used to it. But yeah, so in Black Ops 1 and all the Black Ops 1 maps, they made it to where you could be revived from it, and that was really a cool addition, and it's been that way ever since, which is why I just recently purchased it. Now, most of you will know that. Most of the people that might find their way on this video would know that for sure, but if there is anybody out there who's never played zombies before and you stumble across this video, might be a little bit informative for you, I don't know. Personally, it is not my favorite perk. Most of the time I try not to rely on Quick Revive when I play by myself, and I very rarely buy it if I'm playing with more than just myself. That being said, it does make reviving much easier. It speeds it up by 100%. You do it twice as fast, and that is incredible whenever you are trying to get somebody in a pinch where you've still got a full map of zombies and you've got very limited time in order to pick them up before they will actually reach where you are at. And obviously that was the main appeal of it, and ultimately I'd say it's one of the most beneficial perks that we have seen. It's really great, especially if you wanted to do something back on like Black Ops 1 when you could upgrade the ballistic knife and get the crossbow upgraded as well, and basically have the 12 additional monkey bombs and the knife that revived people, plus you could pair it with this and run a medic class essentially. I remember doing that back in the day on Keynote or Toten when we would play in groups of 4. I would like to be the medic if I got the ballistic knife out of the box, and that was a lot of fun. Definitely makes you look at zombies from a different light whenever your main focus is not killing them. And it's definitely a lot of fun if you are into supportive roles when it comes to video games, especially whenever you're able to find one in a game like this where it's pretty clear cut and anybody can do whatever they want. There's no real set classes or groups or whatever that you would really need to fall under in order to do productive things as far as the game goes. Especially not in zombies, of all places. But that being said, it's definitely a good perk. I'm glad that they've brought it around. Some other perks that they have introduced that were meant to be other versions or new looks at the way Quick Revive worked would be things like Tombstone and Who's Who. which were both featured on Black Ops 2. Tombstone was on Transit, and Who's Who was on Die Rise. Now, personally, I think these two perks are probably two of the single worst perks that we have ever seen in Call of Duty Zombies. For one, you can't even get Tombstone on solo play, which, I mean, that's all fine and dandy, but now there's not really a way where you were able to keep your perks if you were playing by yourself, which, that being said, I guess they did have the perma perk where you could do that, but assuming you didn't have that unlocked, say you're a new player to the game, or you don't frequent Transit a lot, you know, that would be an issue. Now, that being said, when you play with other people, it wasn't the worst. If you knew that you had a good team, would be able to survive the rounds. If, say, you're in round 20 and you go down and you have the option to pull Tombstone, and you know your friends on Transit being a very hard map to traverse from one side to the other, you knew that they would be able to be alive to keep themselves up for the rest of the round. Then sure, Tombstone was great because you could just basically take the burden off their shoulders, let them focus on doing whatever they were doing that, you know, was keeping the game alive, and ultimately wouldn't have to worry about what was happening with you, and then you could spawn in the next game and work your way to the little Tombstone drop and pick up right where you left off. And that was really, really nice. That being said, there were often times where you would find yourself in situations to where the team you were working with was not great. And it would be a real struggle to have to come back from a game, it would be a real struggle to try and have to decide on whether or not it was worth trying to get them to pick you up and you lose all your perks because ultimately you're the one keeping the game alive, or if it was worth the risk of killing yourself off and hoping to God that they actually did make it through the end of the round. Now, of course, a lot of that depends on what round you go down and, you know, where you're at with your teammates and all that different stuff, but, you know, it had its applications, but overall I think it was kind of a failed perk for those reasons. But as far as Who's Who is concerned, now that is by far, in my opinion, the #1 worst worst perk. The reason for that being is they really, anytime you used it, you would pretty much just get screwed over, and it didn't matter if you were playing solo, if you had a full team of 4, no matter what happened, chances are if you went down with the Who's Who's perk, you weren't going to be able to revive yourself. And for those of you who don't know the way Who's Who's works, is essentially what happens is you buy the perk, and if you are to go down, what happens is you will basically spawn like a ghost version of yourself who will have a Colt M1911. And that is it. Just that one starter pistol that they had back in Black Ops 2 as well as World at War and Black Ops 1. And as you all probably know, that doesn't do squat to literally anything after round 5. Now, granted, if you're good with headshots, you can probably make it work for a while, but ultimately, any good zombie player, unless they are wanting to pack-a-punch the starter pistol, does not keep it very long. And whenever, you know, you go down on round 20 with Who's Who, and you get spawned in with this starter pistol, the zombies still come at you even though you're in this ghost form. And you don't have any way to kill them unless you want to buy a wall gun and waste your money, or if you somehow want to go and buy a perk in the Who's Who mode, which I don't actually know if you can do that. I do know they would allow you to do certain purchases as far as buying weapons, but ultimately I'm not wanting to buy a perk that I have to spend money in order for it to be viable once I've already spent the money to get it in the first place. And chances are, you know, when you're running around with a starter pistol, you're just going to get downed, and if you get down, then you die out for good. There's no chance of being revived by yourself or your teammates. And that's that. I mean, you basically wasted 2,000 points to buy that perk and fill up a slot that you could have, you know, put Quick Revive in by, you know, for instance, or Speed Cola or Juggernog or any other variety of perks that would have actually been beneficial to you in keeping yourself alive. Now, that being said, if you have a good team who's able to kind of compensate and maybe watch over you as you revive yourself, that would be nice, specifically because that's basically an extra hand. Oh, damn, I brought the wrong gobble gum. But that's basically an extra hand to watch out for you whenever you are being revived. And so that's helpful, but still, overall, it's not a perk that I ever use. It was only on that one Die Rise map, which I think is a good map. It had some shortcomings as far as, you know, the elevators and who's who and all that. But, you know, I can forgive it. It's ultimately wasn't the worst thing that ever happened in Zombies. So, you know, whatever. We'll let it slide for Black Ops 2. Personally, Black Ops 2 wasn't my favorite as far as any of the Treyarch zombies go. I have dabbled in both Advanced Warfare and Infinite Warfare zombies. I do quite enjoy Infinite Warfare, however, I would not necessarily say that it is better than Treyarch. And as far as Advanced Warfare goes, I do enjoy it. I primarily play it with friends whenever they want me to, and I do enjoy it. It is fun, but it's not something I really... You know, it's not something I really think to myself when I'm bored on a Friday night. You know, oh man, let's play some Advanced Warfare zombies. You know, just because it's just not my favorite. I already bought one this round. That's right, I got that respin cycle. Anyway, so other perks that I'd like to elaborate on. One of my all-time favorite perks, which is one that is very popular, even though it only made it into 4 maps. Was Ascension, or I'm sorry, PhD Flopper, which was introduced on Ascension. For those of you who don't know, PhD Flopper basically negated all explosive and fall damage from your character, as well as back whenever the Dolphin Dive was a thing on Call of Duty. If you were to go down a incline, you would actually explode when you hit the bottom, which was actually pretty nice. It only lasted up to about round 15, round 20, until it, you know, it basically quit killing anything. It would still make crawlers, but, you know, on Black Ops 1 crawlers were still good, but Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3, they kind of nerfed the crawlers, and they don't stay alive anymore, and it's hard to rely on them for keeping rounds going. Whenever you need to get stuff done, whether that be hit the box or, you know, go to the bathroom, whatever it may be. But that being said, it was one of my favorite perks. It was great when you paired it up with the Mustang Sally, especially if you were on a map like Shangri-La. However, that's not necessarily the best perk if you were to use it on, say, Moon. With all the windows that could be broken, which I personally do everything in my power when I play Moon to make sure that none of my windows get broken. I hate it when I lose that air and I have to end up wearing my PES through the laboratories or in that starter room. It really bugs me. I hate having to do that. So Flopper is one that I would avoid on that map. And on the topic of explosive perks, I also very much avoid using Widow's Wine on that map specifically. Now, Widow's Wine is one of my favorite perks as well. I do think what they had going there was a really solid idea. It's a lifesaver perk, it really is. And it's a lot of fun to use as well. The way it slows them down on the webs and the explosions and all that are really nice. But that being said, you use it on Moon, you walk past a window and get hit, and one of those grenades go off, and boom, your PES is required because the airlock has been broken. And honestly, like I said, that is one of my least favorite things about Moon. I hate having to wear that PES because it dampers sound. And ultimately, you can't hold the hacker while you're using it, and that's just a big pain in the ass as well, because we all know that you want to have the hacker if you have the chance to have the hacker, because that thing is super beneficial. But overall, PhD Flopper and Widow's Wine would be 2 of my favorite perks. Now, as far as favorite perks go, I would also have to mention Speed Cola, of course. That reload speed is just amazing. It's very beneficial pretty much no matter what weapon you're using. Now, there were a few exceptions to that, like say if you're on Black Ops 2 and you're playing some Mob of the Dead and you get the Death Machine out of the box. Now, that thing just takes forever to reload no matter what. Honestly, I think the Death Machine in itself was just a huge flop, but, you know, it is what it is. I do enjoy it as a power-up. on Black Ops 3, and it was definitely improved from its Black Ops 1 version, which I think was kind of atrocious on Black Ops 2. So that's good. They've been continually upgrading that, and I'm really happy to see that the death machine these days is honestly a death machine. Other favorite perks of mine would have to include Juggernog, of course. I would have to say that's my all-time favorite. Hey, look at that. Because honestly, I mean, there's a reason that there's a thing called the No Jug Challenge. I mean, when a perk is that essential to where it is considered part of abnormal gameplay to not buy it, that's when you know that you've made a perk that is essential to your gameplay. For those of you who don't know, which I'm sure you all do, what Juggernog does is it takes your character from Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, as well as World at War. It took your character 2 hits to die, but when you buy Juggernog, it would take it 5. And here on Black Ops 3, which I am playing, it takes it from 3 to 7, or 3 to 6, I'm sorry. Plus, there are other things you can pair it with. There was the perma perk back on Black Ops 2 that you could unlock for Juggernog, which would add another 1 or 2 hits to that Juggernog, which was a lot more beneficial than a lot of people give credit for. As well as if you play later maps on Black Ops 3, like Gorod Krovi and Revelations. Actually, I don't know that Gorod Krovi has one, but I do know that Revelations has a couple of masks that you can unlock in the game that increase your health as well, and those are all great to pair up with Juggernog. But really, there's just no way for you to get through a game of zombies without having that perk, and that's why I would rate it as my number 1, as I'm sure pretty much every other avid zombie players out there does. Sorry for the pauses. Like I said, it's difficult for me to focus on 2 things at once. Perhaps a live stream where I talk bullshit about zombies wasn't the best idea for it. You know, it is what it is. For those of you watching, I appreciate it. And I do think I'm going to try and do these more often, although perhaps I'll do some pre-recorded footage and then do a voiceover, and it'll work out a little bit better for myself and you guys, depending on what you like. If any of you want to leave some feedback, what you'd like to see out of me in the future, or, you know, any suggestions for this particular series, if I do choose to continue it, that would be much appreciated. I'm always open to feedback. Anyway, let's get back into it. Oh, shit. I forgot I did not buy a jug yet. But this is why I love Quick Revive. While I say I don't try to revive on it, I definitely bring it on these World at War maps. Especially on maps like Nocturne, Toten, and Verrückt. I mean, it's a fucking blessing that they allow us to have Juggernog on those maps now. I mean, playing the original Noct back on World at War is super fun, and honestly, I love it so much. It would probably be my favorite map just because I think it's, I mean, it's iconic at this point, of course, but that being said, I love the challenge. I think it's wonderful, honestly, and I think it's an often overlooked map just simply because it is so old and it is so difficult. What do we got here? Hi, please add a friend, okay, blah, 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 blah. That's spam or if I'm tripping or what, but something weird going on in chat. Can't really tell what you're trying to say there, bud. But yeah. Anyway, perks. For those of you who haven't gathered, I am easily sidetracked. But that's why I called this chatter, because I knew I would be. There's no way I was going to make it through all 13 perks and not sound like a dumbass at some point. So, you know, it is what it is. Since I've got it, I'll talk about Mule Kick here. I think Mule Kick is kind of an ass perk, to be entirely honest. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, Jake, what the hell are you talking about? Mule Kick is so great. And I will admit that having a third perk is definitely beneficial, or I'm sorry, a third weapon is definitely beneficial. The thing is there's no way of telling which one is your third perk, or at least it doesn't seem like it is. There have been games where I've tried to keep track of the third weapon slot, and it just seems like sometimes it just does what it wants to do. Now, that may not be the case, but that being said, say you got a fire sale and you're switching out all your weapons, it's very easy to lose track of that slot. And I think that's actually something that Infinite Warfare touched up on, where with Mule Munchies, which is essentially the same perk, it actually will show a little icon over which gun you will lose if you go down, which I think is a huge improvement, so that way you can actually put weapons in the appropriate slot. That way you don't put a thunder gun or a wave gun or whatever wonder weapon you had in that third slot, which of course this is on Infinite Warfare, so those guns wouldn't be there, but you know what I'm saying. But that being said, one of the other reasons that I just don't like it is, I mean, the price of it is just astoundingly high. 4,000 is the highest price that we have for any perk, and it's only matched by Widow's Wine, which I will say I think deserves that $4,000 price tag. But that being said, I don't agree with Mule Kick being that. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, whenever you have to risk losing a weapon, I think that kind of devalues it a little bit. Just because at any point, you know, you can make a slip up, you lose that third perk, and then, or that third weapon, and then all of a sudden you're back to your original arsenal, which you may not have had. You know, say you ran out of both your other weapons, that's why you went down, and now you've lost your one and only chance to keep going. And there's plenty of other reasons why I feel that way. And that was something I think Infinite Warfare improved upon for that as well, specifically because it only cost 2,000 on there. Another reason I really try to avoid it, I guess those really are the two primary reasons. That being said, it's not a perk I avoid by any means. I definitely do enjoy it when I have excess money, but I mean, 4,000 plus what I remember what I was going to say, the price tag of not only the 4,000, but whatever price it is going to be for the weapon that you're going to put in that third slot, whether you decide to pack a punch a new weapon out of the box, so that would be 5,950, or if you were going to buy a wall gun, you know, that could be anywhere from 500 to 1,500, even all the way up on into 2,000 depending on what map you're on. Because I mean, there's some wall guns, and rightfully so, that can get pretty expensive. I even think you can buy the ray gun through a certain like mini Easter egg on Shadows of Evil through a wall purchase, and that's like 5,000. Which, for the Mark 1, I think is appropriate. I am personally not a huge fan of the Mark 1 anymore, just simply because we have so many better weapons now in Black Ops 3. I really feel that they boosted the overall weapon damage just as a whole, and that's really beneficial, I think. But anyway, yeah, that would be a few of the reasons why I don't particularly hold Mule Kick in a high regard. That being said, it is a perk that I will get if I have, you know, if I have everything else, or if I'm doing an Easter egg or something and know that I'm going to need a specific weapon and don't want to take up one of my slots. You know, it has its applications, and I definitely do see that. And I'll just go ahead, since I'm starting to pick up a few perks here thanks to the Soda Fountain Gobblegum, I'll just go ahead and continue down my list. So I already talked about Jug, but we got Double Tap there now. Double Tap, I basically would have to view it as two perks, because as most of you know, there's Double Tap, the original version, and then Double Tap 2.0. And Double Tap, the original version of Double Tap, what it did was basically boost your fire rate by 33% on all your weapons. Now that's really, really nice, and a lot of people don't like that, and I understand where they're coming from, but personally, if you want my opinion, they derive their opinions from being kind of newbie with their weapons. Now, the main problem that a lot of people have with the original version of Double Tap is that because of that increased fire rate, you end up wasting more bullets when you use automatic weapons, and that is accurate to an extent. But that being said, say you're on round 20, you know, that extra reload or that extra fire speed can really, really, really change the game whenever zombies are starting to get up in your face, especially when you're considering the map that it was released on, which was also Verrückt. And I mean, that is a very in-your-face map. I mean, it's basically essential on Black Ops 1 version of Shangri-La. And I think it oftentimes gets put off by the wayside, and that makes me sad. I think it's a really good perk if it's applied properly. It's by no means the best, but I think it gets, you know, shoved to the wayside more often than it should. Now, that being said, they did upgrade Double Tap to its 2.0 version, which I am a very big fan of. And basically what it does is every time you shoot your weapon, it'll double the amount of bullets leaving it. So instead of, you know, when I shoot this dredge here and that does a burst of 6, I'm actually doing a burst of 12, and it's 2 every time you hear it fire, which is really, really nice because you're essentially doing double damage, and that is extremely helpful in high rounds. It gives all of your weapons a much needed boost, especially if you're playing on harder maps or if you're getting into super high rounds and you need all the extra damage you can get. Now, I don't necessarily know how that affects things like wonder weapons like the Thunder Gun, the Wonder Waff, and all these other ones that are basically instant kill no matter what. But that being said, a lot of those weapons do have a kill cap. I think the Wonder Waff before its Pack-a-Punch is like 10 kills every time you shoot it, so maybe it bumps up to 20, although I do not know that for sure, so don't take my word for it. But, you know, if that's the case, that would be even more reasons to love it. It's just, ultimately, the 2.0 version is much better. And there's really no argument in that. Continuing down the line, I referred to Widow's Wine already, but we've got Deadshot. Now, I've got some pretty conflicting views to the overall opinion, or the general the general opinion of what Deadshot is, and most people rate it as just complete ass. Now, if we're considering when it came out on Black Ops 1 and continuing on into Black Ops 2, I would have had to agree with you. Back then, I just don't think that the amount of help that it gave you was worth it. You know, when you have to consider you're taking up a weapon slot. Now, if you end up getting it as a free weapon, then whatever. You know, it's just one more perk that's helping you out. Although it's not ever something that I used to rely on. That being said, I don't know if they just have been fine-tuning the mechanics for it, or if it's always been this way and I just now discovered it, or if the weapons are getting stronger in Black Ops 3 and that has something to do with it. But it seems like on Black Ops 3 it is just significantly better. And there's really one main reason for that, and I'll show you guys once I get these zombies rounded up. But essentially, what you can do is you can turn it into an OP perk whenever you consider how much you pay for it, because you can just spam, just like this, and just aim in and aim out very fast, and it automatically, I mean, bam, I'm not even using hardly any ammo. Now, granted, I understand I'm using a Pack-a-Punch Dingo on round 13, but the point stands. I mean, you can use the Argus. I don't know why the Argus didn't aim at the head. Maybe shotguns were weird, maybe not close enough. But oh, I mean, we could do the Dredge. I mean, the Dredge still does a lot of damage. But I mean, even at this distance, I mean, popping their heads off, and I wasn't even touching the left analog stick. Like, that was all the game, and that's like huge. That's amazing. And so many people just want to rate it as shit just because of its, you know, the old name that I got back from Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, and I just personally don't think that that's the case anymore. I honestly think it is one of the better perks. It's to the point to where I will choose it over other perks at this point. I would choose it over Double Tap 2.0 because personally I think headshot damage is more viable than double damage. That being said, doubling it with Double Tap is a fantastic combination, especially when you're using fully automatic weapons like the Dingo or the KN. Especially when they get upgraded, you can do some mad damage in a small amount of time, even into the higher rounds. do I already have all 8 perks. I'm still trying to buy shit. But yeah, okay, so, but ultimately I would have to rate Deadshot as one of my new favorites. I'm not necessarily saying that it's essential. I don't think that it's required to have a good game. But that being said, I definitely consider it a lot more than I used to, and I do enjoy using it a lot. Continue on the list, we've got Stamina Up, which Stamina Up has been a personal favorite of mine for a long time, pretty much since it was released. Especially if you're doing something like what I had mentioned earlier, where you tried to do something like a medic class. Excuse me. Because honestly, I mean, the extra speed and the extra time for that sprint is just incredibly viable on zombies, especially whenever you get on bigger maps, like Ascension itself or Call of the Dead. You know, Transit especially, I mean, it was amazing on there. That being said, you get on smaller maps, and I don't particularly think it's necessary. Like if you do it on a new version, the Black Ops 3 version of Nocturne Toten, or say, you know, like Doris, something small like that. It's just not, it's not that valuable. You know, you don't have to run that much. People aren't as far away, and you can generally get around pretty easily just with your standard running mechanism or mechanics. So, you know, that being said, I do really like it. I think it's extra beneficial. I'm an impatient bastard, and being able to get to where I need to go faster is definitely really, really nice. Anyway, not a whole lot to say on that one. It's, you know, it's pretty generic perk. It doesn't do a whole lot. Alright, so we got back to Quick Revive, which I've talked about, and then Speed Cola, which I've also talked about. Now those, I mean, you just can't go wrong with those original 4 perks. I think the setup that they originally built for the game was very good. I think that was well thought out, and the 4 perks, when playing multiplayer games, was the right decision for them to do. Now, as far as applying these perks to certain maps, obviously they all have their own individual functions that are more beneficial on certain maps than others. Like, for instance, on here, on Widow's Wine, here on Shinonuma, I'm not particularly worried about having 3 weapons. Now, I did go ahead and use Soda Fountain, so I knew that I was going to be getting it. But, you know, ultimately, I'm looking to get the Wunderwaffe, and if I do, then I'm pretty much not going to have ammo problems for the rest of the game, especially because I brought Power Vacuum, and I think I also brought Alchemical Antithesis, both of which are very good for making sure that my Wonder Weapons stayed nice and full, which is very beneficial when you start getting to high rounds and don't want to have to waste your ammo all the time, especially in those more powerful weapons. I mentioned Jug, and I mean, Jug is pretty much required no matter where you're at, and we've already discussed that. Double Tap, I think, is really just based on who you are, how you play, but personally I get it on pretty much every map as well. Widow's Wine, like I said, I try not to do on Moon, and I try to avoid it pretty much anytime I'm doing an Easter egg or anything along those lines, just specifically because it is notorious for killing your last zombie. Now, yes, I understand that's on me for not checking to see if I had any grenades left, blah, blah, blah. Please don't bitch at me. But, like, for real, it's so annoying when you're in the middle of an Easter egg and all of a sudden you get smacked from behind and boom, you're on to the next round. Are you serious? Give me power vacuum twice in a row. Fuck you. Personally, I never used Power Vacuum until after round 20 at least on harder maps like Shangri-La, but on like Shinonuma, I probably won't even touch it till 30. My goal here is at least 40. My current record on Black Ops 3 is 38, so I wanted to bump that up into the 40s, and you know, I like to have bragging rights on this game, just because that's the type of person I am. Like I said, I've been playing this game a long time, and rounds still mean something to me. Granted, I usually do the cheap way. I like using my Perkaholics and my crate powers and stuff on the old maps. And some people call me a noob for it, and perhaps they're right. But, you know, I'm enjoying it, and that's all that really matters to me. Occasionally I do like to do challenges in zombies where I'll do like the no jug challenge or the no pack-a-punch challenge. which some people would just call World at War. But yeah, I definitely like making the experience harder, especially when you do games like where you only use snipers or explosives when you don't have flopper or, excuse me, generalized stuff like that. That's one thing I love about Black Ops 3 is, man, these rounds just go by so fast. Oh shit, what a dumbass I am. Well, y'all can see that I'm a bitch, but I'm definitely... Nah, I'm not gonna do it. I'll die out if... Would have been honorable. Jake, I personally... Damn it. Well, that's a little bit embarrassing, but that's okay. I got through all the perks, I think. If I missed any, y'all can bitch at me in the comments or whatever. That's all fine and dandy. But I think I'm gonna cut it off there. 35 minutes has been, I think, a good little session there. So, anyway, have a great night, guys, and I hope to see you all in the next video.